The only way for the alien princess woman to survive was to reproduce with a human man. Smoke curled lazily through the gaps in the broken hull, each tendril glowing faintly in the violet twilight. Kieran pressed his hand against a bent strut and muttered, "Well, that's definitely not regulation." He hadn't meant to stumble across a crashed alien vessel on his way back from fixing water filters for a mining camp, but apparently fate had a sense of humor. The ship looked like a collapsed cathedral made of glass and bone, every angle both elegant and wrong, as though it had been built by someone who enjoyed geometry but hated gravity. He stepped over a sparking panel, tried to convince himself to turn back, and then heard the cough. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't alien growl or hissing static. It was a cough, raspy, human enough to freeze him mid-step. "Hello," he called, which was the sort of dumb thing people said right before monsters ate them in old horror flicks. A figure shifted in the wreckage. She sat slumped against a tilted support beam, silver eyes glowing faintly in the low light, hair tangled with debris, skin too pale to be healthy, but shimmering, as though starlight lived under her skin. Her ears were long, delicate, almost like the tips of blades softened into curves. Regal was the only word he could think of, though she looked more like a fallen statue than a ruler. She coughed again, grimaced, and spoke with surprising clarity. "Do you humans always stand there gawking, or am I just especially radiant when bleeding out?" Kieran blinked. "Oh, both. Both," she repeated, then let her head thunk back against the beam. Truly inspiring bedside manner. He scrambled forward, hands clumsy as he tried to see if she was badly injured. Most of her side armor was cracked, and beneath it, faint streaks of iridescent liquid trickled down her ribs. She noticed him staring, and gave him the kind of look queens probably gave court jesters. "It's not blood," she said dryly. "At least not the way you think of it. You may close your mouth now, engineer." He snapped his jaw shut. "How do you know I'm an engineer?" "Because only an engineer would frown more at broken machinery than a dying princess." She coughed again, then smiled with an exhausted sort of pride. "Yes, I'm royalty. Contain your enthusiasm. Royalty. Alien. Dying." Kieran's brain decided to skip 3 steps of logic and land on panic. "Okay, look, we've got medbays in the colony. I'll call for a transport." No, her hand shot out, surprisingly strong for someone who looked like she might collapse entirely. She caught his wrist, silver eyes burning with urgency. "No human medicine will work. Not for me." Something in her tone, the way her voice trembled under the weight of command and desperation, froze him. "Then what?" She hesitated, and for the first time, pride cracked. "My people designed a failsafe. We are resonant creatures. To survive, my bloodline must be renewed. The resonance requires something only your kind possesses." She swallowed hard, ears twitching faintly as though the admission hurt more than her wounds. "Only the seed of a human man can restore me." Kieran opened his mouth, closed it, then laughed weakly. Right, of course. You're dying. Your spaceship is exploding. Assassins are probably on their way. And what you're telling me is, I'm supposed to what? Save you with interspecies romance biology." Her silver eyes narrowed. "You mock me." "No, this is the single most ridiculous day of my life." "I am not asking," she said, though her voice faltered at the edges, softening into something fragile. "If you refuse, I die." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint groan of metal around them. She let go of his wrist slowly, as if releasing the last anchor she had. For the first time, her arrogance gave way to raw fear. Kieran rubbed his face. "Great. Just great. I came out here to fix a water filter, and now I'm being asked to what? Single-handedly save the alien monarchy. You know I usually just patch pipes with duct tape, right?" Her lips quirked upward, a faint, stubborn smile even as her strength ebbed. "Then perhaps you will patch me with the same duct tape. You humans seem endlessly confident in it." He groaned. "That was almost a joke." "It was entirely a joke," she corrected, eyes half-lidded. "If I must die, I would rather die making one human engineer question the seriousness of the universe." He stared at her, torn between the absurdity of the situation and the quiet weight of her trembling hand still resting near his own. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't some faceless alien invader. She was just a woman who looked like she'd fallen out of the stars, caught between impossible pride and desperate need. Outside, something howled across the wreckage. Search drones, no doubt. The sky pulsed with faint crimson light as scanners swept the horizon. Kieran muttered to himself, "Fantastic. Space cops, killer drones, and a dying princess who thinks I'm medicine. Perfect Saturday night." She managed a weak laugh, the sound fragile but real. "Then choose quickly, engineer. Every moment wasted is another moment I fade." He looked at her, silver eyes locked on him with a fire that belied her failing body, and realized that for all the ridiculousness, all the danger, all the fear, he couldn't just walk away. "Fine," he said, half to himself, half to her. "But for the record, I want it stated in some alien history book that I didn't sign up for this." Her smile widened, even as her eyelids fluttered with exhaustion. History rarely asks permission. And with that, the wreck groaned again, sparks showering down, forcing him to crouch closer, to shield her. In the violet haze of twilight, with drones prowling the sky, and a future neither of them could predict, Kieran realized his life had just been hijacked by a princess with long ears and an impossible demand. Kieran had expected the night to be quiet, maybe a little screaming, a little panicked running, but not this kind of quiet. The wrecked ship had gone dark, its once eerie glow reduced to faint embers. He crouched in the shadows of the broken hull, the alien princess leaning heavily on his shoulder. She wasn't exactly featherlight, though he decided mentioning that probably wouldn't help the situation. "You humans," she muttered, her breath uneven. "Why do you build your skeletons on such inefficient bones? I can feel every awkward angle of you pressing into me." He glanced sideways at her, managing a crooked smile, despite the drones sweeping above the hills. "Sorry. Next time I'll get myself redesigned to be more cushiony. Maybe put in an order with your imperial tailors." Her silver eyes flicked toward him, faint amusement glimmering even through her pain. "Do that. I will approve the requisition personally, once I am alive long enough to sign paperwork again." They ducked lower as a drone buzzed past, its crimson light sliding across the wreckage. Kieran tightened his grip around her waist, dragging them both under a collapsed strut. The drone's scanner swept close, paused, then drifted on. He didn't breathe until it vanished into the haze. Aranelle tilted her head against the beam, exhaustion heavy in her voice. "Your planet has too much gravity. I disapprove." "Yeah, well, you're not exactly sending me 5-star reviews either," Kieran whispered back. "Next time you crash, could you do it somewhere with better cover? Maybe a cave with a minibar." She snorted faintly, which turned into a cough. He steadied her until it passed, biting back the sharp panic that surged in him every time she faltered. "Tell me," she said suddenly, voice softer, "do you ever stop speaking nonsense?" "Nope," Kieran said. "It's genetic. Runs in the family. We all cope with mortal danger by cracking jokes. You should try it. It's therapeutic." Her lips curved, barely there. "Therapeutic. I suppose I could attempt." "Knock knock." Kieran blinked. You're telling a joke? Now. Knock knock," she repeated more firmly. Who's there?" Her eyelids fluttered, her smile stubborn against weakness. "An empire falling apart." "That's wow," Kieran said at a loss. "That's the darkest knock-knock joke I've ever heard." "Good," she whispered. "I have learned your humor." He shook his head, unable to help a quiet laugh. "You're hopeless." Her eyes drifted shut for a moment, then snapped open again, sharp despite the exhaustion. "We cannot stay here. The wreck is marked. They will come for me." Kieran had already been thinking the same thing. The drones weren't searching randomly. They were hunting. Whoever wanted her gone wasn't going to stop. And now he was involved, which meant his chances of dying a spectacular, laser-filled death had gone up by about 1,000%. "All right," he said, shifting her carefully. "We move. Slowly. Quietly. Like two very sneaky raccoons." She frowned. "What is a raccoon?" "Small, furry, steals food, kind of adorable but also terrifying. "Ah," she said, nodding solemnly. "So, you are a raccoon." He grinned. "Exactly. And you're my accomplice. Space Raccoon and Princess. Sounds like a hit holo series." She groaned softly, but didn't argue as he guided her out of the wreck. The air outside was sharp with the metallic tang of ozone. The colony's lights flickered faintly in the far distance. Safety, or at least something pretending to be. They moved slowly, keeping low. The ground was uneven, littered with shards from the crash. Aranelle stumbled once, catching herself with a hiss. Kieran steadied her, muttering, "Hey, no fainting allowed until we've at least gotten somewhere with indoor plumbing." She leaned into him more heavily now, too tired to reply. He felt the subtle tremor in her muscles, the fragility under all that otherworldly glow. It scared him more than the drones. Hours later, though it felt like days, they reached an abandoned mining outpost tucked into the cliffs. Rusted scaffolding leaned drunkenly against the rock, and the entry hatch groaned like a dying animal when he forced it open. Inside, the air was stale but breathable, the shadows thick. Kieran settled her against an old supply crate, pulling his jacket around her even though he suspected she didn't need human warmth the way he did. She blinked at him, silver eyes soft but still commanding. "You should not waste your resources on me." He crouched in front of her, rolling his eyes. "Yeah, well, I'm really bad at following royal decrees. Just ask my landlord." She tilted her head, studying him. "You are strange." "Thanks," he said. "That's my second best quality. Right after fixing broken junk." Her lips curved faintly again. "And yet you choose to fix me." For a moment, silence stretched. The faint hum of distant drones echoed through the cliffs, but in that hidden outpost, it felt like a bubble had formed around them. Kieran broke the silence with a sigh. "Look, I don't know what's going on with your people, or your empire, or this whole resonance thing, but I do know this. If I walk away, you're dead. And I can't do that." Her long ears twitched, a subtle motion he almost missed. She lowered her gaze, voice quieter. "Then perhaps you are not only an engineer. Perhaps you are foolish enough to be a hero." He smirked, sitting back against the crate beside her. "Hero? Nah. I'm just a guy who can't say no when a shiny-eared alien princess bats her eyes at me." She gave a tired laugh, the sound fragile but genuine, and leaned against a shoulder. "Then may the stars forgive us both." The night stretched on, filled with silence and the hum of forgotten machines. Somewhere out there, an empire wanted her dead. Somewhere out there, drones circled like vultures. But for now, in the crumbling shadows of an old mine, an alien princess and a human engineer shared a strange alliance, one laced with fear, humor, and the faint, dangerous spark of something more. The mining outpost creaked like it resented having guests. Kieran had scavenged a lantern from a half-smashed locker, its glow throwing shadows across the dusty floor. Aranelle sat propped against the wall, still pale but steadier now, her long ears twitching every time the lantern flickered, as if she suspected it was personally plotting against her. "You humans," she said, voice still ragged but threaded with sarcasm. "You build dwellings that collapse the moment you breathe too heavily. Is this supposed to be shelter?" Kieran gestured at the cracked ceiling. "Hey, this was top of the line in its day. Early model prefab station. Probably built right after they figured out which end of the hammer to hold." She stared at him blankly. "Hammer? Never mind. Let's just say you're lucky this place hasn't fallen on our heads." Her silver eyes narrowed faintly. "Lucky. Yes, that is exactly the word I would use to describe being stranded with a human engineer in a cave full of rust." Kieran grinned. "See, we're already getting along." Despite herself, she made a sound that might have been a laugh, or maybe she was choking on dust. He decided to call it a laugh. It made him feel less like he was dragging her down into his misfortune. He crouched beside the battered medkit he'd salvaged, fiddling with the alien device that had tumbled from her wreck. The thing looked like a cross between a seashell and a data core, glowing faintly when he poked it. "So this is your version of a first aid kit, because it looks like it should be singing lullabies to toddlers." Aranelle tilted her head. It is a bioresonance stabilizer. It aligns disrupted genetic frequencies and restores vitality through harmonic infusion. Kieran raised his brows. Uh-huh. So, space aspirin. Space aspirin, she repeated, trying out the words like they were bitter medicine. You reduce centuries of genetic science to a pill. Welcome to humanity, he said, pressing a button. The device buzzed, spat a faint hum, and immediately made his hair stand on end. He yelped, nearly dropping it. Okay, that's definitely not the cough syrup setting. She smirked faintly. Perhaps you should let someone trained in its use handle it. Oh sure, let the dying princess do the tech support. Great plan. He fiddled with it again, and this time the device emitted a soft chord, like a harp string plucked in the air. Aranelle stiffened, her silver eyes widening as the glow spread across her chest. Her skin shimmered faintly, wounds knitting at the edges. Kieran blinked. Did I actually do that right? Her voice softened, awe breaking through her usual sarcasm. You did. He sat back, blinking at the humming device in his hand. Huh. Guess I'm a natural at alien medicine. Add that to my resume. Aranelle's lips curved. Do humans normally boast so much after stumbling blindly into success? Constantly. It's how we survive. For the first time since he'd found her, she looked genuinely better. The exhaustion still weighed on her, but her posture had straightened, her eyes clearer. He found himself staring longer than was probably polite. She noticed, of course. You are gawking again. Not gawking, he said quickly. Just checking to make sure you're not about to keel over. She arched a brow. I see. So all human engineers inspect with such intensity. He opened his mouth, then shut it, realizing she was teasing him. You're feeling better, he muttered. Yes, she said softly. Thanks to you. Though not enough to outrun our hunters. Right on cue. The outpost shuddered as something heavy landed outside. Kieran froze, lantern flickering. A faint whirring echoed through the walls. Drones. Multiple this time. Aranelle closed her eyes briefly. They have found me. Us, Kieran corrected. Pretty sure I'm on their to-do list now, too. He scrambled to the nearest console, hoping the old mining systems still had juice. To his surprise, the screen flickered alive, spitting out strings of archaic code. All right, let's see what we've got here. Security turrets? Auto miners? A coffee machine. Aranelle pushed herself up, leaning heavily on the wall. Whatever you find, make it loud. The console sputtered, but he managed to reroute power to the defense grid. Outside, half-buried turrets coughed to life, swiveling with painful slowness. The first drone sliced through the hatch, just as a turret spat sparks and blasted it into scrap. Kieran whooped. Yes. Still got it. Engineer 1, Killer Drone 0. Another drone zipped in, lasers scorching the wall. Aranelle grabbed the glowing seashell device, pressed it to her side, and then hurled a ball of crackling energy that exploded against the drone's frame. Kieran ducked, eyes wide. You could do that this whole time. She swayed, catching herself. Not without your space aspirin. The outpost echoed with gunfire, the scent of ozone thickening. Turrets failed one by one, but together they managed to bring down the small swarm. When the last drone fell, the silence that followed felt deafening. Kieran leaned against the console, panting. Remind me to never complain about broken water filters again. Aranelle sank back to the crate, clearly drained but alive, her silver eyes softer now. You fought well for a raccoon. He laughed, breathless. Yeah, well, raccoons are scrappy. She studied him in the lantern light, long ears angling forward. Perhaps this is why my people believed in your kind. You survived not by strength, but by stubbornness and ridiculous luck. Kieran dropped onto the floor beside her, letting the adrenaline drain out. Yeah, well, don't spread that around. You'll ruin our reputation. For while they sat in silence, both of them too exhausted to move. But when she leaned against his shoulder again, he didn't move away. He just stared at the faint glow of the dying lantern and thought, not for the first time, that his life had taken a turn so absurd it circled back to making sense. Kieran had never been good at waking up in strange places. The mining outpost counted as strange, though by now he was getting used to the moldy walls, the flickering lights, and the faint hum of alien tech sitting between him and the princess like some smug space pet. He rubbed his face and muttered, "Another glamorous morning in paradise." Aranel was already awake, which he found unfair. She sat cross-legged with the resonance device balanced on her lap, silver eyes narrowed in concentration. The faint hum it gave off resonated through the room, rattling in his teeth. "You look busy," he said, yawning, "inventing new ways to terrify me with science." She didn't glance up. "I am repairing it. Your clumsy activation last night disrupted 3 harmonics. If I do not stabilize it, it may decide to implode." Kieran froze mid-yawn. "Implode? As in all of us go splat?" "Yes," she said casually. He stared at her. "And you say that with the same tone someone uses when saying, 'Oh, the soup's a bit salty.'" Her long ears flicked, amused despite her focus. "Perhaps you should make breakfast. That way, when the device kills us, you will at least have contributed something useful." He rummaged through his pack, pulling out ration bars. Breakfast of champions. Compressed protein with a hint of despair. Aranel wrinkled her nose after the first bite. "It tastes like insulation." "That's because it is insulation," he said solemnly. "Company policy, recycle everything." She shot him a look, caught the smirk he was failing to hide, and gave a quiet laugh. "You are insufferable. And yet," he said, chewing loudly on purpose, "you're still alive because of me. Admit it, I'm your favorite human. You are the only human I know." "Exactly. Champion by default." She shook her head, but there was warmth in her eyes. For a few moments, the looming threat outside the outpost felt distant. When she finally set the device aside, its glow steady once more, her voice shifted into something heavier. "We cannot stay here. The drones were scouts. More will come. My people will not stop until I am erased." Kieran sighed. "Figures. You crash into my life, drag me into galactic politics, and now I'm running from assassins. Really wish I'd just stuck to fixing filters." "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. He paused, surprised by the vulnerability in her tone. Then he shrugged. "Regret? No. Terrified? Constantly." Her silver eyes softened. "You are braver than you believe." He snorted. "No, I'm stupider than I believe. Big difference." Despite the danger, she smiled. Stupidity has saved empires before. They packed quickly. Kieran scavenged an old mining cart, rigging its power cells with a muttered prayer. The thing groaned but sputtered to life, floating a few inches off the ground. He tapped aside proudly. "Your chariot awaits, princess." She raised a brow. "This contraption? Hey, don't knock it. It has character. It has rust. Rust is character." She reluctantly climbed aboard, her long ears twitching as the cart wobbled. "If this explodes, I will haunt you." "Noted," he said, steering them out of the outpost. The cart rattled along the rocky terrain, carrying them deeper into the cliffs. Distant streaks of light in the sky hinted at search ships. Aranel leaned against the side, eyes scanning the horizon. "My council fears me," she said suddenly. "They engineered this. My crash was no accident." Kieran frowned. "Wait, your own people tried to kill you." "Yes. They believe removing me will stabilize power. They forget that stability without legacy is hollow." "Sounds like a classic family reunion," Kieran muttered. Her lips twitched. "Your irreverence is strangely comforting." "Good, because it's all I've got." The cart jolted violently as a scanner beam swept over them. Kieran swore, accelerating. Drones appeared on the ridge, sleek shapes cutting through the air. "Here we go again," he muttered. Aranel pressed her palm to the resonance device. Energy crackled between her fingers, but she grimaced. "It is not fully charged. I cannot stop them all." Kieran slammed the cart into a side tunnel, sparks flying as the old frame scraped the walls. "Don't worry. I have a plan." She arched a brow. "Does this plan involve dying?" "Hopefully not, but no promises." The tunnel opened into a cavern filled with dormant mining machines, towering drills and haulers left to rot. Kieran skidded the cart to a halt and jumped off. He sprinted to the nearest console, praying the ancient circuits would still respond. To his shock, the machine stirred, lights flickering awake like slumbering beasts. Aranel's silver eyes widened as the cavern rumbled. "You command machines?" "Command? Nah," he said, frantically pressing buttons. "I just poke until something scary happens." Outside, drones swooped into the tunnel. Inside, drills roared to life, their massive arms swinging. One caught a drone mid-flight, crushing it like tin foil. Another spat a burst of molten sparks, scattering the rest. Kieran hooped. "Yes, eat industrial safety hazards, you metal gnats." Aranel stared at him, half horrified, half impressed. "You are chaos incarnate. And proud of it," he said, ducking as a drone exploded against the cavern wall. When the last of them fell, the cavern went still again. The machines slumped back into silence, smoke curling from their joints. Kieran leaned against the console, panting. "Okay, new plan. We get off this rock before your council sends the entire Imperial Navy." Aranel slid off the cart, weak but standing tall, her silver eyes glowing fiercely. "Then we find a ship, and together we remind them why they should have never underestimated either of us." Kieran smirked. "Princess, you've got a funny definition of together, but I'm in." She lifted her chin, regal even in exhaustion. "Then may the stars bear witness. This alliance is forged." He grinned. "Alliance, huh? Sounds official. Does that mean I get a crown?" She gave him a long look then, with the faintest smile said, "If you survive long enough." Kieran had never thought he'd see the inside of a starship hangar that wasn't held together with duct tape. But here he was, standing in a cavernous bay beneath a fractured moon, trying not to look impressed while Aranel stared down at a firing squad made of her own people. The counselors stood above them on a raised platform, long ears adorned with gold, silver eyes cold. Their voices carried like steel. "Princess Aranel, your survival was never sanctioned. Your bond with a human is a contamination of legacy. End it now." Kieran muttered, "Nice welcoming committee. Remind me never to crash your family reunions again." Aranel didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, every inch the ruler they feared. "You would erase me, erase our line, and call it stability. Yet here I stand alive, because of the one you dismiss as lesser. His blood, his will, kept me from death. If that is contamination, then perhaps you should fear it." Kieran leaned closer and whispered, "You're making me sound way cooler than I am. Keep going." One counselor sneered, "The Empire cannot be ruled by a hybrid bond. It is an abomination." "Abomination?" Aranel's voice rang sharp. "No, it is salvation. You sought to end me, and in doing so revealed your weakness. This human," she gestured to Kieran, who waved awkwardly, "has more courage than all of you. He stood by me when I was broken, and unlike you, he never once turned away." Kieran cleared his throat. "Also, for the record, I didn't really choose to get involved. She kind of drafted me. But, turns out I don't mind." The guards raised their weapons. Kieran tensed, whispering, "So, do we fight or do we run? Because I'm good at running." Aranel's silver eyes gleamed. "Neither." She pressed the resonance device against her chest. It pulsed, brighter than ever before, harmonics rippling through the hangar. The weapons flickered, shorted, dropped from trembling hands. The counselors staggered, clutching their ears as the resonance climbed higher. Kieran winced. Okay, definitely not ear-friendly. But I like where this is going." The device's light softened, flowing outward like a tide. The broken air between human and alien smoothed into something whole. Aranel stepped forward, her voice calm but unyielding. "Our empire has lived by old rules for too long. You would have let me die because tradition chained you. I choose a new path. I choose survival. I choose him." Kieran blinked. "Wait, did you just announce that in public?" "No pressure or anything." Her lips curved. "Pressure makes diamonds, does it not? Or pancakes, depending on technique," he muttered. The counselors tried to rally, but their authority cracked in the glow of her defiance. The guards hesitated, glancing at each other, at the princess still standing, at the human grinning beside her like he'd just fixed the universe with duct tape. At last, silence fell heavy, and Aranel's words echoed through the chamber. You may call it heresy. I call it the future, and the Empire will follow, or it will crumble. One by one, the guards lowered their weapons. Even the counselors faltered, caught between outrage and the undeniable weight of survival. Kieran exhaled slowly. So that's it. We won. Aranel looked at him, silver eyes softening. We began. Winning is never so simple. He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, but I'll take beginning over dying any day. Later, as the ship carried them into orbit, the stars stretched wide and endless beyond the viewport. Kieran leaned back in the chair, exhausted but unable to stop smirking. Well, congratulations, princess. You're alive. Your empire hasn't murdered you. And I didn't blow up anything important. Yet. Aranel sat beside him, regal even in weariness. You underestimate yourself. You changed everything. He chuckled. Nah, I just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time. Her long ears twitched, a faint smile gracing her lips. Perhaps. But you are no longer merely an engineer. You are my partner. The word hung between them, weighty but warm. Kieran blinked, then shrugged with a grin. Guess that means I finally got promoted. Took long enough. For a while, they sat in silence, watching the stars. The chaos behind them was not gone, but it had been reshaped. The bond that had begun as desperation had become something chosen, something real. Kieran stretched, sighing. So what now? You rebuild your empire, I fix space toilets, and we live happily ever after. Aranel's silver eyes glimmered. Perhaps, but only if you promise to never stop speaking nonsense. It seems. I have grown fond of it. He laughed, the sound echoing into the quiet of the ship. Deal. And as the stars opened before them, Kieran realized he was no longer just a man patching broken machines. He had become part of something larger, stranger, brighter. Not by accident, not by fate, but by choice. The end.